Hey, what's going on in the big old world today, people? I'm going to bring you the latest and greatest like I always do. And welcome to the Jamie Hicks Show. Um, Today we're going to be discussing city permit number 3. This is a discharge permit for Carus Chemical. Um, it pertains to the discharge into the city sewer. I'm going to go over a couple of things here. Before we even get started, I want you to notice the date of this permit. 2011 through 2016, City of Lasalle, General Wastewater Discharge Permit number 3, Carus Chemical Company and Special Products Division. Now we're going to skip on down because we'll read through all this. What I want to get to is, as we said, permit date was reissuance date was July 2011. It doesn't look like they activated it until the superintendent of the Water Works Treatment Department signed off on the permit. So that gave them 2 years of just free run. Expiration date June 30th, 2016. Application renewal date April 30th, 2016. Now, mind you, there's a lot of information in this permit that I will probably skip over, like these daily limits that are allowed to go down into the sanitary sewer. We will go through the names of them, but these are daily discharge limits that they are allowed to discharge into our sewer. There's rules and regulations, and there's tiers on, what inspections and compliance. So we're going to go over this permit because apparently the city of LaSalle mayor and aldermen don't know whose job it is to do what, or they're trying to tell us that we're not allowed to they're not allowed to go on these premises at all inside a chemical plant in the middle of our town. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we will get started, and I'll pause in between and fill you in, and like I said, we may skip around a little bit, but it'll be okay. We'll get through it together.
2011 to 2016 City of LaSalle, General Wastewater Discharge Permit, number 03. Carus Chemical Company, Special Products Division. Company name, business address, street, 1500 8th Street City, LaSalle. Zip code, 61301. Location of premise permitted, street, 1500 8th Street City, LaSalle. Zip code, 61301. Section 1. This discharge permit is an individual control mechanism as required under City Ordinance 1785 Section 4.2 pursuant to 40 CFR 403.8. This permit shall incorporate the items listed in Ordinance 1785. Upon signing of this permit by the company representatives, and receipt of one signed copy at the LaSalle Wastewater Treatment Plant, the above-named industrial user is hereby authorized to discharge wastewater to the City of LaSalle subject to said industrial user's compliance with applicable pretreatment standards, city ordinances, and the terms and conditions stated in this permit or on amended pages and any supplemental permit which may be issued to said user. An unsigned permit shall be effective within 30 days following the issuance date below. Failure of the user to sign this document does not relieve the user from any terms or conditions in this permit and shall be listed as a significant non-compliance permit excursion.
Okay, right here, failure for the user to sign this document does not relieve the user from any terms or conditions in this permit and shall be listed as significant non-compliance permit excursion. So what that means is they're already non-compliant by not signing this permit. Our mayor did not even sign this permit. So to my amazement, well, I'm really not amazed. But as you can see, it says pre-treatment standards, city ordinances. They put a city ordinance in place for this permit. City ordinance under this section, 1785 section 4.2 pursuant to 40 CRF 403.8 blah 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 blah. It's a permit that the city made and apparently don't understand what the permit's for.
This permit and the conditions included within have been reviewed and we agree to its terms and conditions. This permit is signed by the following principal executive officers or their representatives acting on their behalf. Signature, title.
None.
Company representatives. City representatives.
We'll wait 2 years before we sign it. Unreal, people. I can't make this shit up.
Kevin J. Daly, Superintendent of Wastewater Treatment Plant. Mayor, City of LaSalle. Reissuance date, activation date, modification date, dated January 20, June 30. Emergency phone numbers, page 1. Pollutant. The following effluent limits are required to be regulated under 40 CFR 403.8. Under 40 CFR 403.8, local limits must be technically based or demonstrated that they are not necessary. The following limits have been developed using the Rock River Water Reclamation District computer program. Discharges from each separate discharge of the permittee shall not contain more than the following concentrations based on a 24-hour composite sample. Multiple industrial wastewater discharges from the permitted facility may be combined in a flow-weighted manner to determine compliance with the following limitations for a 24-hour composite sample. Compliance with the following limitations as listed in Ordinance 1785 shall be achieved on or before.
Okay, so according to this permit, they are allowed to discharge in a 24-hour time period, no more than these limits here. Of what? We'll get into it.
July 1, 2011. Carus Chemical Company, Special Products Division. Ammonia, nitrogen, antimony, arsenic. Barium, beryllium, cadmium, chromium. Chromium, chromium total. Copper cyanide. Fluoride, iron, lead. Section 2. Discharge limitations. Phosphorus, selenium, silver. Manganese. Mercury, molybdenum. Nickel, oil and grease. pH, minimum standard units. pH, maximum standard units. Phenols. Sulfate, 2 thallium zinc. 1 day maximum.
1 day maximum of all these heavy metals, people. And most of these is what I found in the discharge pipe into the Little Vermilion River in a previous video that I posted. We're going to continue on. I'm going to skip over these limits here because it doesn't pertain to what we're after here, people. Just bear with me. All right, here we go.
Permit number 03, Section 2, Continued Discharge Limitations. BOD. SSMG/LMG/LMG, L1120. Total identifiable chlorinated hydrocarbons, 1.0 mg, L, 1.2 mg, L1, pH standard shall be extended to 5.5 to 10.0 standard units if the manufacturing facility is engaged in the precipitation of metals in the pretreatment process. 2. Sulfate poundage has been increased on a trial basis. Should pass-through, interference or sludge contamination at the pot occur as a result of these levels, the city reserves the right to ask for reductions of these levels of discharge. Also, if the state or federal requirements for this parameter be changed during the period of this permit, a re-evaluation can be requested and discharge levels can be reduced because of this. 600 to 800.
Nobody's checked into it. Nobody's changed anything. They have upgraded their systems many times since then. They just got done doing a multi-million-dollar project last year right before the fire.
The permittee shall comply with the prohibitive discharge standards contained in Section 2.1 of the City of LaSalle Ordinance No. 1785. These include but are not limited to 1. Waste streams that present a fire or explosive hazard, including streams with a closed cup flashpoint of less than 1,400 F. 2. Discharges with a pH below 5.0 or above 10.0 standard units. 3. Solid or viscous substances that will cause flow obstructions. 4. Any pollutant released at a rate or concentration which singly or by interaction with other pollutants shall cause an interference or present hazard at the pot. 5. Any wastewater having a temperature which will inhibit biological activity or result in interference at the pot. Mg. L. 840. 6. Oil in amounts causing pass-through or interference. Vapors and fumes, worker health and 7. Pollutants causing toxic gases, safety. 8. Trucked and hauled wastes shall have designated discharge points. 9. Any noxious or malodorous discharge which singly or by interaction with other discharges creates a public nuisance, hazard to life or prevents entry into sewers for maintenance and repair. 10. Any wastewater imparting colors defined in Ordinance 1785, Section 2.1, 11.
Okay, let's talk about any wastewater imparting colors defined in the ordinance 17855 Section 2. The day of the fire. All the water and the bugs went down to the waste treatment plant because the valve did not shut off. There is an automatic valve that they typically don't work. In my line of work, they tend to seize up, especially with heavy metals and build up in the pipe. If these valves aren't exercised or tested, they will not work. So, during the fire, we lost water down our sanitary sewer, which killed every bug in the treatment plant. Now, bugs are bacteria that break down feces, things like that. They put bugs in septic tanks and so on. We'll continue.
11. Any wastewater containing radioactive waste or isotopes, unless previously approved by the control authority. 12. Any unpolluted or non-contact waters, unless previously approved by the control authority. Page 32,011 2016. Permit number 03. Chemical Special, Section 2, Continued Discharge Limitations. 13. Any sludges, screenings, or other residues from industrial pretreatment activities. 14. Any medical wastes, unless previously approved by the control authority. 15. Any wastewater causing the pot to fail an effluent toxicity test. 16. Any wastes causing excessive foaming at the pot. Under the Pretreatment Implementation Review Task Force Amendment provisions, notification must be given to the pot as soon as an industrial user becomes aware of discharge loadings that have the potential to violate the prohibited discharge standards. The application of pretreatment standards shall follow the peer amendment provisions. These include the provision that dilution is prohibited to achieve compliance with all applicable pretreatment standards.
Okay, dilution, people, dilution is not the solution. It says it right there. The provision that dilution is prohibited to achieve compliance with all applicable pretreatment standards and requirements according to 40 CFR 403.6D. The proper application of the combined wastewater stream formula produced and the producers for the net gross determinations. People, this is not a joke, and we're going to get into this, and they're way past that point too. They're pumping out more than that in a 24-hour period. It's a proven fact.
And requirements, the proper application of the combined waste stream formula, and the procedures for net gross determinations. The total rate of discharge from the permitted facility during the first year of this permit shall not exceed 100,000 gallons per day, 24-hour maximum, 70,000 gallons per day, 30-day average.
Nobody checks it. Trust me, nobody checks it. These averages per day have gone up. That means they're in violation of this permit. We'll continue.
These figures are based on reported flow figures provided to the city in the 6-month industrial monitoring reports submitted to the city. Any exceedance of the above maximum concentration and flow rates shall be reported to the city and shall be listed as a permit violation. Such violation shall be subject to notice of violation and escalating enforcement response on the part of the city.
You heard that. Enforcement responsible on part of the city. I don't know what City of LaSalle's thinking, but this permit says one thing, and the city is thinking something totally different. Any exceedance above the maximum concentration flow rate shall be reported to the city and shall be listed as a permit violation. Violations gone unviolated.
The permittee shall comply with the following requirements for time of discharge, flow regulation and equalization. Discharge shall be 7 days per week, 24 hours per day, from a batch-treated process. Primary periods of discharge shall be during low organic loadings at the pot. Flows shall be limited to a maximum of 50 GPM from the treated discharge. Should the flow rate be excessive or cause operational problems at the pot, adjustments shall be made to both the flow rate and the discharge cycling pattern. Slug loadings are prohibited. No batch is to be released until the discharge parameters are found to be in the acceptable range. Operational personnel shall be expected to routinely inspect and monitor the pretreatment facility during periods of discharge. Page 4. Self-monitor.
You heard that right. No batch is to be released until the discharge perimeters are found to be in acceptable range. Operational personnel shall be expected to routinely inspect and monitor the pretreatment facility periods of discharge. That's right. They monitor. They test. And now we're going to go into self-monitoring.
Bring requirements. Samples taken as a requirement of this permit shall be representative of daily operations. All categorical industries shall conform to 40 CFR 403.12. Requirements for sampling. Composite samples shall be flow proportional. With prior city approval, time proportional samples are acceptable. Where composite sampling is not feasible, a grab sample is acceptable with prior written city approval. Parameters requiring grab samples shall conform to current EPA guidelines for such procedures. These include pH, total phenols, cyanide, sulfates, fog and volatile organic compounds.
There you go, people. The pH cannot be above or below a certain range. And this is what they're dumping down our shit, man. And they're required to get grab samples as long as they conform to EPA guidelines with city written approval, where composite sampling is not feasible. Well, you know what they're going to tell you. It's not fucking feasible. This is Carus Chemical we're talking about.
These samples shall be analyzed using procedures that meet the requirements of 40 CFR 136. Use must report all violations within 24 hours. All regulated industries must resample within.
That means Carus must report violations within 24 hours or they are in violation of this permit. There is a 90-day reporting requirement that is the same as for the baseline monitoring for an existing and new industry that comes under newly defined category definitions.
30 days of finding a parameter violation as specified in. There is a 90-day reporting requirement that is the same as for a baseline monitoring report for any existing or new industry that comes under a newly defined categorical definition. In the event that the average concentration of any pollutant in all samples analyzed in a 30-day period exceeds the maximum concentration limit in this permit, the permittee shall notify the city and submit laboratory results within 14 days of the end of such 30-day period. Failure to do so shall be subject to escalating enforcement response.
Failure to do so shall be subjected to escalating enforcement response on part of the city, not the EPA, the city, people. I am fucking sorry, but where is our city? Where is our city?
On the part of the city. The sampling point or points for industrial user self-monitoring shall be as specified in Section 4 of this permit. Representative samples shall be taken by the permittee in accordance with the following schedule, self-monitoring schedule. Sampling point, frequency of sampling and pollutants to be analyzed. All samples must be within parameters prior to batch tank discharge. 1. pH at the end of the holding tank for the batch processing. The samples must be representative of the entire tank contents. 2. So biweekly composites accumulated from each individual batch release. 3. SS and TDS weekly composites accumulated from each individual batch release. Page 5. Carus Chemical Company. Inspection, sampling and monitoring facilities. Rights of inspection and sampling shall conform to Section 7.1 in Ordinance 1785. The industrial user shall install and operate, at the user's expense, monitoring facilities at the end of each industrial process or at each point of discharge. To the city's sewers. Criteria for scheduling city and self-monitoring samplings and inspections are as follow. Compliance. Status.
Here's your compliance, people. This is going to go over. We're already not in compliant, remember, because we did not sign the permit. And we're probably not in compliant because they never did any of these testings. The city's not doing their parts, and we'll get to that here in a minute.
1. In compliance. 2. Infrequent non-compliance. 3. SNC. Type of sampling or inspection. Routine or non-routine. Routine or non-routine. Minimum frequency of samplings or inspections quarterly by city, quarterly to monthly by city, as required to verify performance, weekly, bi-weekly or monthly, as required to verify performance.
I don't know what you think that says, but it says maximum frequency of sampling or inspections quarterly by the city. Quarterly. When you're in non-compliant, such as they are due to the permit, quarterly to monthly by the city as required to verify performance. How in the hell do they know what their performance is? How is anybody in our city, the deer in the headlights, going to know the operation and performance of this facility, people? Do you see anything wrong other than this outdated ass permit? And there's no excuse for it.
City sample and inspection types. Routine, scheduled samplings and/or inspections. Samplings are done at least quarterly and a minimum of one annual inspection shall be made. 2. Non-routine, unscheduled spot checks of regulated clients that are either infrequently non-compliant or are in a SNC category. Also used as follow-up. Samplings for excursions. Criteria for frequency increases or decreases. City sampling and inspection frequencies are based on compliance status and performance verification. 2. IU self-monitoring and inspection frequencies are based on industry type, and also on compliance status and performance verification.
Oh, well, if you're going by performance, according to Mayor Grove, Carus Chemicals and high performance. City sampling frequencies are based on compliance statutes. It gets even better, people. We'll just keep going.
Any charts, totalized records, sludge handling and disposal records, process and reporting laboratory records shall be maintained for a minimum of 3 years.
3 years,
Page
people.
6. Carus Chemical Company, Special Products Division. Section 4. Specific requirements for this firm are as follow. 1. All parameters must be within limits prior to the release of any batch material into city sewers. Recycling and/or treatment of batches must be done until discharge specifications are met prior to releasing batch material into the city sewers. 2. Should polymers be used again, they should be closely monitored with daily feed poundages recorded and feed rates controlled by the use of recorded jar testing. Both sets of records shall be available to city, state and federal inspectors for review.
Both sets of records shall be available to the city and the state federal inspectors for review.
3. The city monitoring location within the plant must allow for locking of the sampling tube end and must allow for a representative sample of the batch material being discharged. Electrical plug-ins used for the city sampling equipment must be tamper-proof. Report of changed conditions, as covered in Ordinance 1785, should be followed prior to the introduction of any new or modified waste streams. The permittee should remain aware of the fact that waste minimization should be developed and implemented in all locations that are possible, and that the increased allotment of flows may create the need for the POT to evaluate the adequacy of the uniform concentration of pollutants system-wide. Such an evaluation may necessitate a revised uniform concentration or redistribution based on a...
I have a problem here. This plant is producing more product and is pushing more waste down our sewer. Is anybody doing any of this? I don't think so. I know so.
Mass balance calculation. Page 7. Carus Chemical Company, Section 5 Compliance Schedule. There is no compliance schedule in place for this firm at this time. Compliance schedules are developed under 40 CFR 403.8. The city reserves the right to establish compliance schedules as needed during the life of this permit. Page 8. 2011 to 2016. Carus Chemical Company, Special Products Division. A. Section 6 Special Conditions. 1. pH equipment shall be routinely calibrated, and a permanent logbook kept, showing these calibrations. A record of these calibrations shall be kept as separate log available for inspection by city, state or federal inspectors. 2. Flows shall be recorded, indicated and totalized and shall be maintained by operational staff. Flow metering equipment shall be calibrated semi-annually and on as uniform a basis as possible during the life of this permit. A record of these calibrations shall be kept as a separate log available for inspection by city, state or federal inspectors. Flow data shall be submitted with the 6-month data listed under item 4 below and is to be totalized by month, quarter and 6-month period. 3. A copy of the cover sheet of this permit in English and/or the language of common use shall be posted permanently in a prominent location on the industrial user's premises. This sheet shall advise employees.
People, right there, you're in violation if this paperwork is not up. It says, a copy of the cover sheet of this permit in English or a language common use shall be posted permanently in a prominent location on the industrial user's premises. This sheet shall advise employees who to call in an event of a discharge or prohibited material. Employers shall ensure that all employees who are in a position to cause, discover, or observe such an accidental discharge are advised of emergency notification protocol. That.
Who to call in the event of a discharge of a prohibited material. Employers shall ensure that all employees who are in a position to cause, discover or such an accidental discharge are advised of the emergency notification procedure. Observe. 4. Data evaluations forms indicating the nature and concentration of pollutants and flows in a permitted discharge stream shall be submitted semi-annually to the City of Lasalle on forms provided by the city. Electronic submittal of information on computerized floppy disks may be done in lieu of DEFs if approved by the city. Sampling for all SEERs for these reports must be performed during the period covered by the report CFR 403.12 and any extra samples that an SIU generates must be included in the semi-annual reports. These reports are due on or before the 20th day of July and January for the preceding 2 calendar quarters. The defs shall list the number of tests run in a given the number of times each parameter exceeded concentrations or technical review criteria section 2 of this permit. Time period along with the daily maximum values as listed in page 9 2011 to 20. Carus Chemical Company, Special 5. Special conditions, continued. The number of self-monitoring samples taken during each 6-month period is also to be included with these submittals, since this information is required from the pot when their annual review package submitted to IAPA. A page signed by a properly authorized representative as required in Ordinance 1785 must be included that has the following certification. As required in 40 CFR 430.12, I certify under penalty of law that this document and all attachments were prepared under my direction or supervision in accordance with a system designed to assure that qualified personnel properly gather and evaluate the information submitted, based on my inquiry of the person or persons who manage the system, or those persons directly responsible for gathering the information submitted is to the best of my knowledge and belief, true, accurate, and complete. I am aware that there are significant penalties for submitting false information, including the possibility of fine and imprisonment for knowing violations.
Yeah, fines and imprisonment, people, for violating and not reporting, self-reporting, like they like to do. Why they give this company the opportunity to self-report and give their own tests, if they're giving them, is beyond me. And COVID is no excuse for the 3-year gap in the testing on part of the city.
With a certifying statement shall accompany these reports indicating compliance total toxic organic handling. The certifications shall be signed and dated by an authorized representative of the industrial user as required by government regulations. Industries that have TTO guidance information available shall be expected to have at least one baseline sampling photos to validate this certification. 6. An annual inspection of your facilities, wastewater reports, test results, test procedures, chemical storage, sludge manifests and environmental permits shall be conducted by personnel from the city pot. 40.
Okay, hang on, people. This is very important. An annual inspection of the facilities, wastewater reports, test results, test procedures, chemical storage, sludge manifests, and environmental permits shall be conducted by the personnel from the city. This is from the treatment plant, people.
CFR 403.8.
Disappointing.
TTO 7. All records pertaining to the wastewater streams shall be maintained for a minimum of.
I just want to add, we begged them to go into that facility. We begged them to go into any facility that Carus Chemical owned, and they refused and told us they had no rights to go on their property. That tends to fucking change things right there. Right here. This changes it right here. It's in the fucking permit. Lasalle, Illinois. Mayor Grove and my alderman.
3 years. Sludge records shall be maintained for 5 years. A separate log notebook shall be maintained for all permits and/or manifests related to sludge withdrawal and disposal. 8. This permit shall remain in effect for a period of 5 years. Should the permit expire before reissuance, then the existing permit conditions shall remain in effect. 9. The operation of the pretreatment plant shall be under the direct supervision of a properly certified industrial operator as required by the State of Illinois EPA regulations.
The operation of the pretreatment plant shall be under the direct supervision of a properly certified industrial operator as required by the State of Illinois EPA regulations. Who? You heard it, State of Illinois. They're not doing their job, people. They've let us down in so many ways.
Page 10. Carus Chemical Company, Special Conditions, continued. 10. Revocation of this permit may occur if the permittee causes pass-through, interference or inhibition of the sludges or waters of the POP. Legal action and damages shall also be sought if this should occur. 11. This permit shall be reopened and modified if the state or federal EPA puts additional requirements in the city's permit or if other items must be added to assure compliance with city, state or federal laws, regulations and conditions. 12. This permit is non-transferable without, at a minimum, prior notification to the Potwin provisions of a copy of the existing control mechanism to the new owner or operator, as required by 40 CFR 403.8. 13. All applicable civil and criminal penalties as listed under Ordinance 1785, or its amendments or replacements shall apply to violations of pretreatment standards and requirements. This element is required under 40 CFR 403.8. The enclosed supplemental enforcement response guide lists fine amounts of up to $1,000 per day per violation as required in 40 CFR 403.8. This ERG has provisions that satisfy 40 CFR 403.8. 14. Toxicity testing on the part of the POP may be required to ensure compliance with effluent requirements. Toxicity screening and/or testing shall be required of industrial users if treatability and compatibility issues arise. The exact nature and extent of this testing shall be determined on a case-by-case basis. 15. SEERs shall be evaluated every 2 years to determine the need for slug control plans. These plans shall include a description of discharge practices and stored chemicals, b. immediate notification of the...
What did I say? These plans shall include a description of discharge practices and stored chemicals. That means stored chemicals on site, people, according to 40 CFR 403.8 F2 V, A, and B. Immediate notification of sludge discharge and for written follow-up in 5 days.
Pot with slug discharge
Well,
is
just
in written
continue.
follow-up
It
within
gets
5
better.
days. C. Procedures, as necessary, to prevent adverse impact from accidental spills. 40 CFR 403.8. 16. Hazardous waste notifications must be returned by each industry to determine which industries must submit additional information to control these hazardous wastes. Page 11. 2011 to 20. Carus Chemical Permit Number O. Special 17. All users must notify the POT of changed discharges, including changes in hazardous waste discharges. 18. Attached to this permit is a separate 7-page enclosure entitled City of LaSalle Industrial Pretreatment Program Enforcement Response Guide, May 1, 1994. This is the current ERG being used by the city for enforcement activities related to the Industrial Pretreatment Program, and was approved for incorporation into this permit on February 6, 1995 by USPA. Should modifications to the ERG occur during the life of this permit, they shall be incorporated as an amended section to this item. Page 12. Carus Chemical Company, Permit Number 1. In addition to requirements set forth in this permit, the industrial user shall comply with all applicable requirements of Ordinance 1785, the Supplemental Wastewater Discharge Permit, if any, issued to the user, and applicable federal and Illinois regulations. 2. The industrial user shall allow representatives of the City of LaSalle ready access to all parts of the user's premises where wastewater is generated or chemicals are stored for purposes of inspection, sampling, examination and photocopying of required records, and in the performance of any of their duties as provided in Section 7 of Ordinance 1785. The user shall maintain records of all information resulting from required monitoring activities for a minimum of 3 years or more if extended due to unresolved litigation or at the request of USPA or IAPA's.
The industrial user shall allow representatives of the City of LaSalle ready access to all parts of the user's premises where wastewater is generated or chemicals are stored for the purpose of inspection, sampling, examination, and photocopying of the required records in the performance of any of their duties. People, says it right here. They fought us. I've been telling them since January to inspect these buildings, and they had every right, and they lied and said they didn't in their permit and an ordinance. This is a friggin' crime, people.
Provided in Section 6.14 of Ordinance 1785. 3. Within 90 days following the date for final compliance with the discharge limitations in Section 2 of this permit or, in the case of a new source, within 90 days following commencement of the introduction of wastewater into the POP, the permittee shall submit to the city a report indicating the nature and concentration of all pollutants in the user's discharge which are required to be monitored by the user. The report shall state whether the discharge limitations are being met on a consistent basis and, if not, what additional O&M or pretreatment is necessary to bring the industrial user into compliance. This statement shall be signed by an authorized representative of the industrial user and certified by a qualified professional. 4. The industrial user shall notify the city prior to the introduction of new wastewater or pollutants or any substantial changes in the volume or characteristics of the wastewater being introduced into the pot by the user. Formal written notification shall follow within 30 days of such introduction. 5. The permittee shall apply for renewal of this general wastewater discharge permit at least 60 days prior to the expiration date of this permit. This notification requirement includes notification of any slug discharges by the user, that is, any discharge concentration of any given pollutant, as measured by a grab sample, that exceeds 5 times the allowable concentrations as set forth in this permit. Page 20. Step 6. The industrial user shall immediately notify the city of any accidental, or deliberate, discharge of incompatible pollutants which may cause interference of the pot wall will pass through the pot or violate requirements of the city's pretreatment program ordinance and shall within 5 days following such discharge, submit a written report describing the cause of the discharge and measures to be taken by the user to prevent similar future occurrences as provided in 403.8, page 14. 2011 to 2016 City.
Well, people, I don't know what to tell you on any of this crap, but it's pretty amazing, isn't it? That a company can get away with this. Our city has refused us many times on our pleas to hold this company accountable. They keep telling us they have no rights on their property when they actually do. Uh, you know, Here at the Jamie Hicks Show, I'm going to tell it how it is. I'm going to prove with facts and data the truth behind the bullshit. So, keep following me, like and share all my stuff. I'm going to bring it. Thanks for watching. Might do a short version later. Thank you.